Namaskar, Jai Shri Krishna. Enlightening Text 1, Text 2 and Text 3 of Chapter 12, Creation of the Kumaras and Others of 3rd Canto, the status quo of Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 1, Maitreya Uvacha, Iti te varnitah kshatatah kalakhyah paramatmanah mahima veda garbho atha yathastrakshin nibodhame. Shri Maitreya said, O learned Vidur, so far I have explained to you the glories of the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his feature of Kal. Now you can hear from me about the creation of Brahma, the reservoir of all Vedic knowledge. Text 2. Sa sar jagre andha tami sramatha tami sra madikrita mahamoham cha tamashra cha jnyan vrittayah. Brahma first created the nisha and engagements like self-deception, the sense of death, anger after frustration, the sense of false ownership and the illusory bodily conception or forgetfulness of one's real identity. Before the factual creation of the living entities in different varieties of species, the conditions under which a living being in the material world has to live were created by Brahma. Unless a living entity forgets his real identity, it is impossible for him to live in the material conditions of life. Therefore, the first condition of material existence is forgetfulness of one's real identity. And by forgetting one's real identity, one is sure to be afraid of death, although a pure living soul is deathless and birthless. This false identification with material nature is the cause of false ownership of things which are offered by the arrangement of superior control. All material resources are offered to the living entity for his peaceful living and for the discharge of the duties of self-realization in conditioned life. But due to false identification, the conditioned soul becomes entrapped by the sense of false ownership of the property of the Supreme Lord. It is evident from this verse that Brahma himself is a creation of the Supreme Lord, and the 5 kinds of nescience which condition the living entities in material existence are creations of Brahma. It is simply ludicrous to think the living entity to be equal with the Supreme Being when one can understand that the conditioned souls are under the influence of Brahma's magic wand. Patanjali also accepts that there are 5 kinds of nescience as mentioned herein. Text 3. Drushtava papiyasim srushtim natmanam bahava manyata bhagavadhyan puten mansanyam tato srujat. Seeing such a misleading creation as a sinful task, Brahma did not feel much pleasure in his activity and therefore he purified himself by meditation on the personality of Godhead. Then he began another term of creation. Although he created the different influences of nescience, Lord Brahma was not satisfied in performing such a thankless task, but he had to do it because most of the conditioned souls wanted it to be so. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15.15 that he is present in everyone's heart and is helping everyone to either remember or forget. The question may be raised why the Lord, who is all merciful, helps one to remember and another to forget. Actually, his mercy is not exhibited in partiality towards one and enmity towards another. The living entity as part and parcel of the Lord is partially independent because he partially possesses all the qualities of the Lord. Anyone who has some independence may sometimes misuse it due to ignorance. When the living entity prefers to misuse his independence and glide down towards nescience, the all-merciful Lord first of all tries to protect him from the trap. But when the living entity persists in gliding down towards hell, the Lord helps him to forget his real position. The Lord helps the falling living entity glide down to the lowest point just to give him the chance to see if he is happy by misusing his independence. Almost all the conditioned souls who are rotting in the material world are misusing their independence and therefore 5 kinds of nescience are imposed upon them. As an obedient servitor of the Lord, Brahma creates all these as a matter of necessity. But he is not happy in doing so because a devotee of the Lord naturally does not like to see anyone falling down from his real position. People who do not care for the path of realization get full facilities from the Lord for executing their proclivities to the fullest extent, and Brahma helps in that procedure without fail. Hare Krishna.